This is the concierge, sir.
And hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and we have quite a week coming to Las Vegas. For those of you who love wrestling, it's WrestleMania, baby. I actually have zero interest in WrestleMania, but I do know that is a huge event that many people come to, I think this is one of the first time it's been in Las Vegas, but they've gone to other states, other stadiums to experience, and it's a whole thing. And I know people around the office that I work at absolutely love everything that surrounds pro wrestling, and to them, they say this is one of the biggest weeks of the year for them, so they're very, very excited. I'm excited to sort of see who comes into town to see this, just because I do work in like the sports industry, and I do understand how diverse the wrestling community is and people who actually really enjoy it, and how big a weekend it actually will be for the city of Las Vegas. And these type of events are very important for the city of Las Vegas, especially during downtimes throughout the year, which, it's April, but it still feels sort of like it's, down, especially with all the trade stuff going on and people not traveling to the U.S. and all the tariffs and stuff. It does affect Las Vegas. So we'll talk about WrestleMania, and I'll also jump into something a little bit more personal in terms of what it's like having friendships in Las Vegas, and what you should expect if you're moving to Las Vegas, or you already do live here, or you're wondering sort of what the friend scene is like here. So I'll go ahead and dive into that a little bit later. But let's start with WrestleMania 41 is what it is. So WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. Let's go over it. Coming up now on Concierge Confidential. Okay, but let's go ahead and dive into WrestleMania. So WrestleMania is basically, I keep saying it's just WrestleMania in general. I guess it's called WWE World at WrestleMania 41. I guess that is actually the fan convention that takes place Thursday through Sunday, which that's, I believe, the 17th through the 21st, which is actually a Monday. So, again, just reading off papers. But that essentially is the convention that takes place at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So, for those of you that want to check it out, go and check out, I believe it's WWE.com, I think, and then you go to a link that's fanaticsevents.com. You do need tickets to go to the actual convention space, where I believe they're doing autographs, photos. You can see all your favorite wrestlers there. So it is very much sort of like, again, for the nerds in the room, sort of like the Comic-Con for the wrestling fan. But it's essentially we're going to be able to meet all of these different guys. Or if you're an adult fan, it's like sort of going to the AVNs, which is very similar. Never been, though. Very, very curious why I haven't gone. But let's go ahead and dive into it. I've lived in Las Vegas for like almost 12 years, and I've always said I just want to go to AVNs to see what kind of people are there. But then I actually went to Resorts World last year and found out that, it's you don't need to go actually into the convention space. You can just walk around the casino and you see exactly who is there signing the autographs and the ones not signing the autographs. So that's all I have to say about that. So let's go ahead and talk about the world at WWE World at WrestleMania 41. These are the pricing. So essentially, if you want to do a 5-day badge for the entirety of the event, you're looking at $345 per person. That is inclusive of taxes and fees. So you're looking at $345 for adults, and for kids, $138 for all 5 days. I believe if you're under 2 years old, you are free. So if you're a 2-year-old listening to this podcast, what's up? But for most people, you usually do 1 or 2 days. So let's go ahead and go over sort of the daily prices. So if you're going to be there Thursday through Sunday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, either one of those days by itself, you're looking at $86.25. That is the same for every day except Monday, where Monday it's going to be $63.25. So for the adults, you're looking at $76 to go see either one of these events. So maybe if you have a schedule that comes out, maybe see who's actually going to be there those days, maybe choose the day that you want to go. Then you have the kids. Kids pricing is going to be $40.25. Honestly, for a lot of you who might be listening to this podcast, may already be going. So these prices may not mean anything to you because, you're already bought your tickets. But for any of the locals or people who are in town during WrestleMania, this is hopefully helpful to know what the pricing is. And again, on Monday for kids, it'll be $28.75. Looks like it's pretty easy. You just go to WWE World at WrestleMania 41. It should pop up. It has its own website, and then it has a place where you can purchase tickets. I believe they also have who's going to be appearing there. I like how I talk through these things as I'm doing them. But if it's actually very clearly marked, if you go to the website, and they actually have the superstars who will be appearing. They also have, I believe, you can actually buy, so this is very important to note. If you want to do a photo op, it is $64 for the photo that they can send to you via JPEG, and they also have additional printouts for another $16. So that's interesting. But actually, very, very cool. You can actually go on their website, look at the person you want to take a picture with or meet, and you do have to buy tickets for it. So that's very important to note that if you want to take pictures with some of these major superstars, you have to purchase tickets for it. It does look like a lot of the bigger ones, the ones who are very, very famous, are already sold out. And some of them do autographs, some of them do photo ops, and all that other good stuff. So I like that I'm just sort of like scrolling through. I'm like, I don't know who that is. Although some of them I do know. But very, very interesting. So this is cool. So I like sort of just navigating the websites. That's what I do. I always recommend everybody to, check out websites. It's really important to sort of look. Cat's kind of out of the bag now that I will be going to the Kentucky Derby with my parents in May, so I'm very, very excited to experience a Kentucky Derby for the first time. And what I've been doing, I've just been online looking up everything that has to do with the Kentucky Derby, so I know what to get myself into, whether it be from social media, the seating, what to expect once you're inside of the event, what it takes to actually get to the event. And also, I have friends who've been to the Kentucky Derby, and I just ask them questions. And that's really just one of the best ways to get information for the, actual the personal experience you're going to have with this event is just ask, hey, what was it like this year? What was it like that year? Obviously, it's different when for something like WrestleMania, which travels. They're not always the same experience because you have different convention centers, you have different logistics. Las Vegas is pretty easy because everything is sort of in the same area. But things like the Kentucky Derby, which are every single year, are pretty easy to sort of stay consistent as you go through. So really important, maybe make sure you check out this website, wweworld.com, and that's where you're going to be able to find a lot of the information for appearances, who's performing on what day, if they're doing autographs, photo ops, Superstar Row, which I guess is a thing, and I believe they also have merchandise and all the other good stuff over at the convention center. So let's go in and get into the actual events themselves. So the events that are actually, the live events are going to start taking place on Friday, and then go through Monday Night Raw is what it looks like. So these events are going to be sort of straddling between the T-Mobile Arena, which is where we have our ice hockey games for the Golden Knights that has a capacity about 18 to 19,000. And then the big event, WrestleMania, will be taking place at Allegiant Stadium, which is the very, very big, our football stadium that holds about 65,000 people. Fun fact, by the way, why it held 60 to 65,000 people is because that is the minimum to hold a Super Bowl. And that is why every new stadium built in the NFL is built usually with a dome and usually with a capacity of 60 to 65,000 people. Why? Because domes get you on the short list, and 65 gets you on the list in general. So anyways, moving back to it, SmackDown is going to be on Friday, April 18th, and I believe that is going to be taking place at the T-Mobile Arena. I've been told by very smart sources that is sort of like the up-and-coming league. So if you're wondering what are the differences, that is one. SmackDown tends to be the sort of single A, if you will, to the MLB. Okay, Ray, so I went and did a little bit of research, a little bit more clicking around because I was just trying to go off the website and it threw me off. And I thought this was the case. WrestleMania is 2 nights, 2-night event on Saturday and Sunday. They do have, I believe the matches will start at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific, which is in Las Vegas. On night 1, they're going to have, let's see here, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Looks like that's one of the bigger fights. They also have the World Tag Team Championship and so on and so forth. And then night 2 looks like they have the undisputed WWE Championship between Cody Rhodes and John Cena, which people are really, really excited about. So the other things that will be going around these events, because, that's what I'm here for, we do have over at Fountain Blue, they actually have a comedy, like a comedy show set up along with places to meet the fighters, as well as other events surrounding WrestleMania. Then you also have Circa, which Circa I just read is going to have a Ric Flair night, which I believe is going to have Ric Flair at the Legacy Club on Thursday. So all those things need tickets, so make sure you check those respective properties to check out and see how much it is to go to those events, how much it is to actually, enter those properties. But that's important to note going forward. So WrestleMania is a pay-per-view event. So just remember, when you do pay-per-view events in Las Vegas, typically you are not able to purchase on your TV in the rooms. So hopefully you bring your laptop, or you bring your laptop, or bring your Apple TV. But the great thing about Las Vegas is that we figured out that you don't need to do that. We have plenty of watch events that you can go to. So I know that the Palms is having a watch event over at their property. And of course, Circa, which is downtown, will be having a watch party inside of their pool over at Stadium Swim. So I'm just going to actually look up the prices for you guys just so you know sort of what to look for. They're calling it Circa Mania. So if you're looking through the property, that's what you're going to see. Couple different events going on, but if you're going to be doing the watch party, I'll go ahead and sort of talk you through it. You can reserve a spot just like you do for the Super Bowl, where it is based on, food and drink. Food and drink minimums is what I'm looking at. And that is something that you need to know going in, just similar to what you would do for any of those big events for those days. So let's go ahead and look. So for those days, looking at about $1,000 those days. So that's important for the daytime. And then once we get to the evening on Saturday, I'm going to click through ticketing. We're looking at $1,000 minimum spend for the water couches. The booths are going for $2,000. The owner suites are going for $5,000, which those are the very big ones at the edges. The day beds are about $500. So these are actually pretty straightforward pricings for WrestleMania. And that is what you get for that Saturday. It looks like it's going to be from the entire day. So if you end up getting the upper cabanas, it's from 8 to 11 p.m. all day long, which is $3,000 for the whole day. It's not too shabby. I actually wouldn't mind that. You guys should do that. So they do have watch parties at Circa. I know they're going to have a watch party at Redbird. They're going to have a watch party over at the Beer Park, which is underneath the Paris Eiffel Tower. Another place that's sort of like on the fence, I'm not sure if they're going to have an event, is Jason Aldean's, which I feel like places like Jason Aldean's, places like Old Red will be very popular this weekend. So just keep in mind, if you go to some place a little bit more down home, like Jason Aldean's and Old Red, they will most likely be much busier than other properties. But I think it's going to be a very busy weekend for WrestleMania. If you are going there, again, T-Mobile Arena, very approachable. If you're able to park like somewhere else other than like the Park MGM, I would recommend take the tram, which goes from the Bellagio to the park property, Park MGM, and then you can walk over to T-Mobile for SmackDown and all the other events that take place at T-Mobile Arena. And then for Allegiant Stadium, again, the parking is a little bit tough, so maybe park at a different property and then take an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi to the Luxor or Mandalay Bay, get dropped off there, and then you're going to walk over the bridge to Allegiant Stadium. That's a big enough event where they will shut down the traffic for the bridge that goes over there. So if you're staying at places like, let's just say, Caesar's Palace, I would just take an Uber or a Lyft down to, Excalibur, Luxor, Mandalay Bay, and that's your best way of avoiding having to pay for more parking and really avoiding traffic on your own. At least you're going to be riding in the car and not driving the car, which is nice. I also don't recommend get picked up from Allegiant Stadium because the Uber lines are incredibly long. If you can stand it, I would say once you're done with WrestleMania to walk back to Mandalay Bay, and that's where you call your Uber or Lyft, which typically aren't as busy as, say, Allegiant Stadium's parking area. Because also you have to remember that the Ubers to get back to the other side of the strip have to go through a lot of traffic over the bridges, wait through all that traffic, Once you're on the other side where Mandalay Bay is, the strip side, you don't have to cross the freeway. You're just up and down the strip, easy peasy. That's what I would recommend you do if you're planning on, taking a Uber or Lyft there. The weather's nice right now. The weather is nice, so you can dress very much so like you would dress for spring. Again, check your local, check the local weather that day, just because if it is like 95 degrees or 92 and you're coming from some place that's very cold, you're going to get very, very hot very, very quickly if you're outside for too long. Also, make sure you drink enough water. That's another big thing, because when you go from extreme cold or colder to even a little bit of heat, it does feel much more extreme than it would be like if we're in the middle of July going from 95 to 100. It's like you're kind of acclimated for that. When you're going from 75 all the way up to 92, you do feel that major shift. So again, just be cool. That's what I would recommend. Again, hopefully you guys enjoy WrestleMania. If you are not a WrestleMania fan, don't worry, Vegas is open to the rest of you guys. But look at most places will have a viewing party. So you just have to sort of check it out. Like I said, WrestleMania will be a main feature over at Circa. The Fountain Blue has a watch party inside of their big giant theater room, their theater, and then also places like Beer Park. Places like Born and Raised, which is right next to Allegiant Stadium, would have it showing as well. And not a lot of big events this weekend either. This will be the biggest one in terms of sports. So make sure to check that out. So I think we're good. I think we spent a good amount of time on WrestleMania coming into town. Hopefully you crazy people like it. But we're going to sort of shift topics now to something that I just want to sort of talk about is friendships in Las Vegas and things that are nice. So let's go ahead and dive into that coming up now. So I just wanted to touch on this just a little bit. I didn't want to sort of like be a downer for everybody, but friendships in Las Vegas can be kind of tough to maintain, just because this is a city where everybody has different schedules. I know people say that all the time in cities that you might be living in, but that usually just means you have different days off, and then you have to sort of figure out what days off you're going to have to deal with on between a Thursday and a Friday, or, that kind of thing. Or maybe your friends work weekends and you don't. Well, in Vegas, it's the whole thing. It's like you have the different days off, then you also have different shifts throughout the day. Sometimes you have people who work graveyard shifts. Sometimes you have people who work, regular 9-to-5s, and it's really hard to sort of match up. So I've had a lot of friends that I'm originally from Arizona, and then I moved to Las Vegas. I lived here for about 11 years. And then I sort of started over with new friends from college. And all those friends ended up moving to California. So then I had no friends again. So I usually really latch on to a lot of my work friends, just because we usually have the same schedule. And that was really fun, especially when I was a concierge, just because we all would go do social things together. So that really was a fun thing that was very helpful for me. Which it takes me a little bit to go out, especially nowadays. But now I have a lot of people who work in sort of the television industry, and we also have are much different levels of our lives. We have a lot of people who are married, a lot of people who have kids, and you sort of have to maneuver how you can do that. So it's a little bit harder for having friends at this particular job, just because, again, different schedules throughout the day, and then different responsibilities at this point in our life. And again, some people, a lot of people this generation, especially in Las Vegas, unless they work on the Strip, do not like to go to the Strip. And that's actually where I like to spend a lot of my time at, as you guys have found out. So I have trouble, me personally, having a lot of friends in Las Vegas. And it is tough. And I think I find that with a lot of people that have one or two close friends, and it could be just an age thing as well. And of course, the pandemic is a huge, thing of that as well. But I do really appreciate it when people invite me to do things, especially now that I have, for the longest time, I had such a weird schedule. Now I work 9-to-5, which, it's not really even 9-to-5. It's 9-to-5 hours, where I'm pretty available most of the time. But, it's always different at this point. But I do a lot of things on the weekends now, so Fridays and Saturdays, sort of like a normal person. But you find that a lot of relationships in Las Vegas, because of the access to certain things, become quite transactional, and you never really know where you sit with some people, unless you do work with them and you're kind of in the same sort of niche. That's how it sort of felt when you were working as, a concierge, or you work as a front desk agent, or even the nightclub guys. I feel, actually, this is going to sound really silly, I do feel really bad for people who work in the nightlife industry, whether it be bottle service girls or nightclub hosts, just because so many times you're going to get a lot of text messages like, hey, I have some people coming through. Do you think you can, hook me up with a table? That's got to be annoying. It's got to be the most icky feeling. Or it's even worse when they, you send the, hey, how's it going? They try to start a conversation like it's a normal day when you haven't talked to this person in 3 months. It is a little bit weird. It does feel quite awkward. So I try to avoid doing that, just because I know it doesn't feel good whatsoever. And sometimes when you're in the industry, like when I used to be a concierge and I had lots of host numbers in my phones, that's really what it was. It was quite transactional. Like, hey man, I'm coming through like in 2 weeks. If there's anything available, like, that'd be cool. And there was always ways of saying it. I don't think I said it that. I don't think I said it that way. It was sort of a magic way of asking for a table. There is still one guy who's really awesome, and his name's Elliot Ailman, who works over at Tao Group, who's awesome. He's a really awesome, fantastic person. I could talk to him anytime, and he is super, super cool. But a lot of times, like, it's a very transactional sort of world. I have lots of, bartender friends. Some are really close friends, and some are friends that I just sort of like became acquaintances with because I go to bars a lot. And I think we have sort of an understanding, but there is, I think, a level of like, hey, like, we're very, very friendly. And I like that. And that's sort of a fun way of, I get along, I think, with bartenders quite well, because we always know that we're about to end the conversation. We're always sort of talking to the end of a conversation, which is sort of interesting. So it's tough. If you are moving to Las Vegas and you're somebody who needs a lot of friends, you definitely have to go out of your way to make friends. You definitely have to leave your apartment. You have to go to local places like Durango, South Point, Green Valley Ranch. But those are kind of like old people places. So Durango's where it's at. Durango, Red Rock Canyon, which is actually places that I'm not close by. I'm not close by Durango. I'm not close by Red Rock, Red Rock Casino Station. So sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it is difficult, and you have to make an effort, which I honestly later in life have become less good at maintaining those relationships, just because I do like to do my own thing. I do feel bad, like, if I go someplace in particular and, it's an expensive place, I don't want to bring somebody else that isn't want to spend that amount of money, because they're not used to it. They can afford it, but they just, can't. They're not used to, spending that amount. And it does feel uncomfortable if I make somebody spend that maybe doesn't want to do that. So I live alone, so I just have to sort of like pay for myself when I go out. But sometimes people, if they bring a spouse, they have to pay for two. So I try to understand where people are coming from in that sense of the word. But Vegas is not. It's also an interesting place because they do have some places that are very much community-based. Places like the Arts District, places like downtown, places like Summerlin, those sort of areas. And it just depends. And again, like I said, you really have to try to make an effort. I've become very, comfortable doing things alone, which is not great, which I don't like that. And Vegas can be a fun city to be, to be single in and alone. And sometimes it could be, a very dangerous place to do that for. So I urge anybody who's moving to Las Vegas that you have a very strong, are really comfortable being alone, but also ready to, be open to different experiences. What I love about, being alone here in Las Vegas is that you can kind of do whatever you'd like, and meet different people, which is always fun. But I do have trouble with the friendship thing. So I actually was like invited to a coworker's like pool party over the weekend, and that was like an awesome experience. It was super fun. It was nice sort of getting to sort of experience what it's like to live in a city that doesn't have like casinos in it, and you just went to somebody's backyard. And it was such a fun time. We watched the Masters, and it was absolutely fantastic. So really grateful to that person who invited me, and I was able to go and sort of interact with people who weren't, paid to be at the bar, essentially. So super fun. I know that this part kind of got a little deep. If you're listening this far, like, cool. But I'm good. Again, you just have to be strong-willed and, fight through the loneliness sometimes, but find good things that sort of make you happy. Love going to the movies other than going to the casinos, because you can't do that all the time. It's a really easy city to sort of be lonely and sad all the time because you have all the things that are good for that, and that's alcohol and gambling, and you want to stay away from those things if you can at those moments. So again, I know I got a little bit sad here at the sort of end, but I've had that sort of on my chest and just wanted to let it out that, friendships are tough in this city, but a lot of people have fantastic communities. I've seen people who are in softball leagues, people who are in volleyball leagues, people who are in pickleball groups, and that's really, really fun. So hopefully if you guys are moving to Las Vegas, you meet sort of your folks, your people, and that is really something fun to do while you're here. So again, hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your week in Las Vegas. If you're coming out, if you're going to WrestleMania, hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully they have really good fireworks and a light show and lasers and all the stuff that you want. I probably won't be out and about this weekend, just because maybe not my crowd. And it also might be just super, super busy around the areas that I like to hang out at. So enjoy WrestleMania, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you see me out in town at some point on your trip, make sure to come up, say hello, and remember, keep it confidential.